The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 33, Part 5. March 25th, 1934. How prayer in the divine will becomes the mouthpiece of the acts done in the divine fiat. How the humanity of our Lord possesses the generative virtue. How divine love consists in its reproducing itself in all and in each one. It seems that my poor mind cannot do without going in search of the acts done in the divine will. If it did so, it seems to me that I would lack the royal palace in which to reside, the food to nourish myself, the air to breathe, the step to be able to move freely within its interminable boundaries. Ah, those are the acts of the divine will, which, while I search, call me, and unifying themselves with me, seem to whisper to my ear, "We are in your power, and with the power of these acts, you have sufficient coins to ask for and impetrate the kingdom of our supreme fiat." In order to obtain a divine volition, it takes divine acts, and as the creature lives in it, our acts extend around hers, and our act holds her own as though in triumph, and asks together with her for the triumph, the dominion of our will upon earth. But while my mind enjoyed the enchanting sight of my little acts, surrounded by the seas of the divine acts, and my little love encircled by the sea of the divine love, and with arcane and incessant voice they could but ask, "Fiat voluntas tua, on earth as it is in heaven." My sovereign Jesus, surprising me, all love, told me, "My blessed daughter, how sweet, consoling, powerful it is to hear my will with all its acts, in the little act, love and adoration of the creature, asking for the fiat reigning upon earth. It makes use of the little love of the creature as the mouthpiece to make her resound in all of its acts, to make her ask for its kingdom. It does not want to do it alone, but wants her concourse in order to do it. But do you want to know what this prayer serves for, which contains divine power, value, and weapons that wage war against us with incessant ways? It serves to call God upon earth, for Him to live life in each creature. It serves to make my very divine will and all its works pray that it may come to reign upon earth. It serves to prepare the place for the creature within God Himself. It is a divine, prodigious prayer which knows how to obtain everything. After this, I continued my abandonment in the arms of Jesus. His divine heart throbbed so very strongly with love, with joys, with happiness, and with sorrow. And my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, all the acts of my humanity possess the generative virtue. Therefore, the mind thinks and generates holy thoughts. It thinks and generates light, knowledge, wisdom, divine cognitions, new truths. And while it generates, it pours like a torrent into the minds of creatures, without ever ceasing to generate. So each creature has in her mind the receptacle of these children of mine, generated by my mind, with the difference that some keep them honored, courted, giving them the freedom to produce the good they possess, while others have them without caring for them, and as though suffocated. My gazes generate gazes of love, of compassion, of tenderness, of mercy. I never lose sight of anyone. My gazes multiply for everyone. And oh, the power of my gazes! With how much pity it pours over the human miseries. It is so great that in order to place them in safety, it encloses the creature in my pupil, to keep her defended and surrounded with affection and unspeakable tenderness, such as to astound the whole of heaven. My tongue speaks and generates words that give life, sublime teachings. It generates prayers. It speaks and generates wounds and arrows of love, to give the generation of my ardent love to all, and make myself loved by all. My hands generate works, wounds, nails, blood, embraces, to constitute myself works of each one, balm to soothe their wounds, nails to wound them and purge them, blood to wash them, embraces to hug them and carry them in my arms as though in triumph. The whole of my humanity generates continuously, to reproduce it in each creature. Our divine love consists precisely in this, reproducing itself in all and in each one. And if we did not possess the generative virtue, this could not be a reality, but only a way of speaking, while we do deeds first. And if we use the speaking, it is to confirm the deeds. More so, since my humanity is inseparable from the divinity, which by nature possesses the generative virtue, and remains over the creature like a mother with her arms opened, and generates her life in them in an admirable way. But do you know who receives the effects, the complete fruit, of this continuous generating of mine? One in whom my will reigns, who not only receives the generation of my acts, but reproduces them in an admirable way. Fiat. April 28th, 1934. How the divine will, in each act it does, calls all creatures, in order to give the good which its act contains. Example: the sun. I am always in my dear inheritance of the Fiat. I feel its sweet empire, that keeps me absorbed and so invested as to leave me no time to grieve over the privations of my beloved Jesus. Alas, too painful for me. The multiplicity and infinity of its continuous acts impose themselves on me, to keep me present, and to share with me the good which they contain, and to tell me how much it loves me. And you, how much do you love us? There is a footnote here regarding the word us, meaning the acts of the divine will. And you, how much do you love us, the acts of the divine will? So my mind wandered and remained enraptured in seeing that it wanted to constantly give me from its own, and therefore it wanted me present at its acts. What goodness! What love! Then my sovereign Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My little daughter of my will, your Jesus has the task of manifesting the secrets of my divine will, and its love, which reaches the point of being incapable of, and unable to endure, if it does not give of its own to the creature in a continuous manner. You must know that when my divine will does an act, it calls all creatures into its act. It wants them all with itself, to give to each one the good which that act possesses. So all are enclosed within its act, and receive the good of the divine inheritance, with this difference, that one who is there in our will voluntarily and out of love becomes the possessor of it, while for one who is not, that good is not lost, but waits for its heiress. Who knows? She may decide to live life in our will, so as to give her the possession of it. Nevertheless, out of our generosity, fully divine, we give her the interest of the good assigned to her, that is, the effects, so that she may not die of hunger for the goods of her Creator. In fact, our will, by its own nature, possesses the universal virtue, and therefore, in each of its acts, it calls all, it embraces all, it involves all, and it offers its divine goods to all. Symbol and image of this is the sun, which, having been created by my Fiat with its universal virtue, offers its light to all. It denies it to no one. And if anyone did not want to take the good of its light, the sun does not destroy the light that belongs to that person, nor can it destroy it, but it waits. And when that person decides to take the good of the light, it does not deny itself, it immediately gives itself. And until that one makes up his mind to take the good of the light directly, it gives him the interest by means of the other created things. In fact, in all created things, the sun holds its prime act. To some it gives fecundity and maturation, to some development and sweetness. There is not one created thing to which the sun does not give something of its own. Therefore the creature, in taking food, making use of the plants, takes the effects and the interests given to her by the light which belongs to her, and which she, out of her will, does not take. My will is more than sun. In all the acts it does, it calls all creatures. It keeps them all present, and offers its divine goods to all of them. Now, one who lives in our will, since she possesses as her own property the good that my volition has given to her in each act, feels within herself the nature of good, because good is in her power. Goodness, patience, love, light, heroism of sacrifice are at her disposal, and if she has the occasion to exercise them, she exercises them without effort. And if she does not have the occasion to exercise them, she still possesses them, like many noble princesses, which form the honor, the glory of the properties that my will has given to her. It happens as to the eye, which possesses the eyesight. If it is necessary for it to look, to help itself through the sight, it does so. If it is not necessary, it does not lose the vision, but keeps its eye as the glory and honor that its seeing eye possesses. To possess my will, and not to possess the virtues as one's own nature, is almost impossible. It would be like a sun without heat, like a food without substance, like a life without heartbeat. Therefore, one who possesses my will possesses everything, as gifts and properties which my divine volition brings with itself. Fiat. May 6, 1934. Primary purpose of redemption: to restore the life of the divine will in the creature. How God does minor things in order to give the place to his major works. I am under the gigantic waves of the divine fiat, which makes me see and experience how all things and all of its divine acts take origin from the divine volition, and are all bearers of a will so holy. So the primary purpose of God, both in creation and in redemption, was no other intent than that of forming his palpitating life of divine will in each creature. And he wanted its royal palace in everything, and the transfusion of all things, and of each act, into his will. And with justice, and with reason, it being the author of everything and of all, what is the wonder if it wants its place, by right, in everything? Then, following the divine will in its acts, I arrived at redemption, and my beloved Jesus, making me pause and sighing, told me, "My daughter, yet in our mind the primary purpose of redemption was to restore the kingdom of the divine will in the creature. This was something divine that we had placed in her, our will operating, the most noble, the most beautiful act, by virtue of which we loved the creature to folly, because she had something of our own. We loved our very selves in her, and therefore our love was perfect, full, and incessant. It was as if we could not possibly get away from her. We felt our very will that from within the creature imposed itself to loving her. And if I came down from heaven to earth, it was the empire, the power of my Fiat, that called me, because it wanted its rights, and its noble and divine act to be restored and placed in safety. We would have lacked order, and would have acted against nature, if in descending from heaven I had saved the creatures, but had not rescued our will and restored our kingdom in them, that which is divine, our most beautiful act which we had placed in them, beginning, origin, and end of everything. But who is it that does not think of saving himself first, and then others? No one. And if he cannot save himself, it is a sign that he will have neither the virtue nor the power to save others. By restoring the kingdom of my will in the creature, I did the greatest act, an act that only a God can do, that is, securing my very life in the creature, and by saving myself, all were placed in safety. No more dangers, because they had a divine life in their power, in which they would find all the goods they wanted. Therefore, my redemption, my life, my pains, my death, shall serve to dispose the creature to so great a good, and as preparation for the great portent of the kingdom of my will in the human generations. And if the fruits, the life of it, cannot be seen yet, this says nothing, because in my humanity there is the seed, the life of my Fiat. Therefore this seed possesses the virtue of forming the long generation of many other seeds in the hearts, to regenerate in them the restoration of the life of my will in the creatures. Therefore, there is no act done by the Supreme Being which does not come out of our will, and its love is so great that it places itself as life of our act, and as life it claims its rights, for it wants to carry out its life. Hence, how could I come to reign, were I not to give back these rights to my will? In order to come to redeem, these rights were restored in my celestial mother, in my humanity. And only because my will had these first rights could I come to redeem. Otherwise, I would have found neither the way nor the place in which to descend. And my humanity took on the commitment with it, by dint of pains, of giving back to it these rights, of letting it reign in due time in the human family. You, therefore, pray, and united with me, do not spare the sacrifice of your life for a cause so holy and divine, and of most heroic and great love toward all creatures. Afterwards, I remained concerned about what is written above, and I thought to myself, how can it be that while he says that his primary purpose of his coming upon earth was the establishment of the kingdom of the divine will, though redemption was connected together with it, the fruits of redemption can be seen abundantly while of his Fiat reigning? almost nothing can be seen yet." And Jesus added, "My daughter, it would be absurd, and against the divine order, not to give the primacy to our will, as in fact we did. I can say that first began the kingdom of the divine will in my celestial mother, then in my own humanity, which possessed all the fullness of the supreme will, and then came redemption. And since the Queen of Heaven and I, by virtue of this kingdom which we possessed in its full vigor, represented the whole human family as the heads, to reunite all the scattered members, it is because of this that redemption could come. It was precisely from within the kingdom of my will that redemption came out. If I and my mother had not possessed it, it would have been a dream, and would have remained in our divine mind. Now, I being the head, the king, the Savior, and the true sacrificator of mankind, whatever is there in the head, the members have a right over it. Whatever the mother possesses, the children have the right to inherit. Here, then, redemption. The head wants to heal the members and bind them by dint of pains and of death, so that they may avail themselves of the virtues of the head. The mother wants to reunite the children, make herself known, to constitute them heirs of what she possesses. Here is the necessity of time, in such a way that, while redemption came out of the kingdom of my will, as prime act, redemption will serve as powerful means in order to communicate to the members the kingdom which the head possesses. One and the other shall hold hands. And besides, if I so much love, want, and insist that creatures would have my will alone as the sole principle in all things, I myself then, who possess the life of it, and was to descend from heaven to earth, and it would cost me so much, was I not to give primacy to my will? Oh, my daughter, this says that my will is not known in depth, while one act of my will has more value than all creatures united together. And this is so certain that it is from my will that redemption received life, while redemption had no virtue to give life to my will. My fiat is eternal. It had no beginning, either in eternity or in time, while redemption had its beginning in time. And since my volition has no beginning, and it alone can give life to everything, hence, by its own nature, it holds primacy over everything, and there is nothing that we do in which we don't have as our primary purpose that our will have its life, dominating, operating, and reigning. But you say that the fruits of redemption can be seen, while nothing appears of those of the kingdom of the divine will. This says that our divine ways are not comprehended. We do minor things in order to give the place to our major works, and to realize our primary intent. Listen to me, my daughter. In creation, our primary purpose was man. But instead of creating man first, we created heavens, sun, sea, earth, air, winds, as the dwelling in which to place this man, and so as to let him find everything that was needed to make him live. In the very creation of man, first we made the body, and then I infused in him the soul, more precious, more noble, and containing more value than the body. Many times it is necessary to do minor things first, in order to prepare with decency the place for our major works. What is the wonder, then, if in descending from heaven to earth, our primary purpose in our divine mind was to constitute the kingdom of our will in the midst of the human family? More so, since the first offense that man gave us was directed precisely against our will. Therefore, with justice, our first intent was to be directed to rejoining the offended side of our will, and to returning to it its royal palace. And after this would redemption come. And redemption came indeed in a superabundant way, with such excesses of love as to astound heaven and earth. But why before? Because it was to serve to prepare, with decency, with decorum, with sumptuousness, with the endowment of my pains and of my very death, as kingdom, as army, as cortege, to let my will reign. In order to heal man, my pains were needed. It took my death to give him life. Yet one tear of mine, one sigh of mine, one single drop of my blood would have been enough to save all, because everything I did was animated by my supreme will. I can say that it was my will that ran within all my acts, in my most harrowing pains, to seek man and place him in safety. How, then, can the prime purpose be denied to a will so holy, so powerful, which embraces everything, and there is no life nor any good without it? Therefore, the mere thinking that is absurd. So I want you to recognize it in all things as prime act of everything. In this way you will place yourself in our divine order, that there is nothing in which we do not give primacy to our will. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 33, Part 5. Fiat.